Today I'm making Boxty, which is a traditional Irish potato pancake, and this does have the husband-approved stamp of approval on it, but then my husband has an Irish background and he eats cold baked potatoes out of the fridge, so take it for what it's worth. I have here 10 cups of mashed potatoes, and this is just, I cooked them up and mashed them. They don't actually have butter or salt in them like if I were making mashed potatoes, but you can also use leftover mashed potatoes for this recipe and just cut back on the butter and salt later if you are so inclined. And then I have, it'll be a total of 10 cups of grated raw potato, but I'm only doing 5 cups at a time here. Just put them in a clean cotton dish towel, and this will probably stain your dish towel, so don't use your favorite one. And then just squeeze out as much of the moisture as you can, preferably into your sink or some other similar place where it won't make a huge mess. I'm always amazed how much moisture there is in potatoes, and what strange colors they turn. You'd think they'd stay white. These are, of course, organic potatoes. I get mine from Azure Standard, so they're still pretty inexpensive. I get them usually 50 pounds at a time, and sometimes as low as about 60 cents a pound, sometimes around $1 a pound, but generally anything organic you can get for $1 a pound or less is a good deal. So that's the first 5 cups of the grated potato. Now I did 5 pounds of potatoes to make mashed potatoes, and then 5 pounds of potatoes to do grated potatoes, but the grated potatoes, it made more like 14 cups, 12 or 14 cups, so I just saved the extra and I'll make hash browns out of those later, or something. And then I'm going to be using white flour in this recipe. I think that you could pretty easily take the liquid and use a whey or a buttermilk or something and soak whole wheat flour ahead of time and make it a completely nourishing, healthy, real food recipe. But because this is for St. Patrick's Day and I'm taking it to the church fellowship meal, I thought I'd just go ahead and use white flour and make it a celebratory recipe. That is also why I'm making 10 pounds worth of Boxty. Normally the two of us do not eat quite that much potato at one time. And then to the 10 cups of mashed potato and 10 cups of grated raw potato, I am going to add 10 cups of flour, which may or may not fit in the bowl. Now, a lot of recipes call for only about half this much flour for this much potato. It's generally equal amounts of mashed and grated potatoes, and then the flour varies from equal to one of those to half of one of those, depending on how dense you like it. A lot of recipes also call for some baking powder, but last time I made them, even with the baking powder, they turned out very dense, and my husband liked them that way. So I figure I will just replicate last year's recipe as best possible and not even bother putting in the baking powder if it's going to be dense anyway. Simplify. That was 1 cup of flour, 2, 7, and I'm actually going to stop at 8. Officially, my recipe would be 10 cups of flour to match the 10 cups of each kind of potato, but I don't think it's going to fit in my bowl and be very easy to mix. So we'll call it 8. That should work out pretty well anyway. And then I'm just going to actually mix this a little bit ahead of time, and that spoon is not going to be any use, so this is a traditional get your hands in the mixture kind of recipe now. Alright, and it doesn't need to be thoroughly mixed at this stage. I just wanted to get the flour throughout the mixture instead of all sitting on top before I started adding the liquid ingredients. I'm adding a cup of melted butter. And as I said, if you're using leftover mashed potatoes that already have butter in them, you may not need quite so much butter. And then let me wash some of this off my hands and get my milk. I'm starting with 4 cups of milk, and I'm going to add part of it and start mixing and then add some more of it. Probably wouldn't be quite this difficult to mix if I had a smaller amount, but sometimes I am a little crazy when it comes to food planning. There's this running joke about how I really don't like it when people starve. If there's not leftovers from a meal, or even if there's only a little bit of leftovers, I get concerned that people may not have eaten enough and I should have made more food and people might starve. So 10 pounds of Boxty, no one is starving. Now, most recipes will call for the same amount of milk as flour. However much flour you put in the same amount of milk. Obviously, I have less milk than that at this point. I have 4 cups of milk to 8 cups of flour. And I'm going to use a little bit more, but I don't think I'm going to need nearly as much as equal. What I want to end up with is a soft dough that's pretty evenly mixed here. I think I'm going to need just about another cup of flour. If it disturbs you to get stuff on your hands, then I don't know. You shouldn't cook traditional recipes, I guess. Or you could use a spoon. It's kind of the boring way, though. Alright, I'm adding another cup of milk for 5 cups. And you actually don't want to overmix this dough because you don't want to start developing the gluten in the flour. It should remain a nice soft texture after it's cooked. Alright, so that's a pretty good even texture there. Soft dough, thick batter type texture, something that's going to hold its shape when you put it in pancake shapes in the griddle, but still spoonable. And there's what it looks like. It's not very appetizing at this moment, I'm afraid. It's pretty much just dough looking. But we will fry it and it will be amazing. As occasionally happens, I forgot to add the salt before. So I added 2 tablespoons of salt to the batter, mixed that in. And now I'm going to start making the potato pancakes. Here I have melted butter and some rice bran oil, mostly just to stretch out the butter because I'm making so much Boxty. And you can make these whatever size you like. I don't want to make mine too big. In fact, probably that's actually bigger than I want to make most of them, that 1/3 of a cup measure. I probably won't fill it up all the way for the rest of them. And I think the official recommendation is about 2 minutes on each side. But generally just when it's brown on one side, flip it over, cook it till it's brown on the other side. And I have this on about a medium heat. I turned it down to slightly under medium while the butter was melting, but I may need to turn it up again now that the pancakes are going in. And this turns out to be like a cross between a hash brown and a biscuit, with a little bit of pancake thrown in there. So you can eat these a lot of different ways. You can treat them more like a pancake and have butter and syrup or honey with them, or you can treat them like a hash brown and eat them with ketchup. I think the traditional way is you eat them with some butter and as a side for meat. But really, it's just kind of use your imagination, treat them like a bread product, and there's lots of possibilities. And now that the Boxty are a nice golden brown, when I peek at the other side, I think they're about ready to flip over. Have you ever noticed that everything is supposedly done when it's golden brown? Is there any other shade of brown in cooking? Oops. Little butter splatter. Needed them off the floor anyway. So those are looking really good there on that side. We'll just let the other side get brown. Alright, it looks like these are about done, and I'm going to put them on a cookie sheet with some paper towels here. That one's probably just on the edge of being overcooked on that side. But again, a lovely golden brown, like apparently everything we eat is supposed to be. And there's the Boxty. And I think I'm going to go ahead and, since I have so many to do, I'm going to do double skillets and fry them twice as fast, and then hopefully I'll remember to show you the big heap of Boxty when we're all done. But this is a really fun Irish recipe. I hope you try it out. I don't have time to actually bake or fry up all of the Boxty at this point, but this is maybe a quarter of the batch. So that's like a normal size batch there. And I was going to mention that you really want these to be nice and crispy on the outside. If you can feel that they're still doughy at all in the middle, you want to cook them longer. And if they're still soft on the outside, you want to cook them longer. So you want them to be crispy like a hash brown on the outside, and then soft and creamy. Not quite as soft and doughy as like mashed potatoes, but just a really nice creamy inside. And that is a perfect Boxty.